This week's video is sponsored by Craftsman Abrasives and by
Microjig, maker of the gripper. Work safer, work smarter.
Now that I have the cutting board out of the clamps, I'm going to make a curved template, and I'm going to use that template to cut the cutting board in half. And I'm going to choose a curve which will enable me to glue the two halves of the cutting board back together more easily, because you want one section of the cutting board to kind of get trapped within the other half of the cutting board when you glue it together, so it's not sliding around. It makes it a lot easier. For example, if you choose a curve like the one shown on the bottom, when you go to glue these together, the top section is just going to want to slide down. It's going to be a lot more difficult to glue together. So I'm going to go with a curve kind of like that. I drew a curve onto my template stock by using a DIY adjustable radius curve bow. Now, I got this idea from a woodworking magazine, and I'm not exactly sure which one it was, but it works out really well. And you can adjust the radius of the curve by moving the string to one of the interior notches. And this is really nice to use when you need to make a curve and you're out in the shop by yourself. At the bandsaw, I cut close to the line, but I left some material that I'm going to need to remove at the belt sander. Now I'm going to use 120 grit sandpaper that I got from Craftsman Abrasives. I ripped these walnut strips a little bit thicker than 1/4 inch, and I'm going to take them the rest of the way to 1/4 inch using the drum sander, and I'm going to use 150 grit sandpaper from Craftsman Abrasives. I have my curve template attached to my cutting board stock with some double stick tape, which is actually carpet tape, and I've used this carpet tape to secure templates to work a bunch of times, and it works really well, and it's easy to get off. And any residue that's remaining on the stock, you can just get off with mineral spirits. Now, I also have a guide bushing attached to my plunge router, and the guide bushing is going to track along the inside of the curve while a 1/4 inch spiral bit hogs out the material. Now, because the base of the plunge router is only going to be supported by one side of the base on the template, there is a tendency for the router to want to tip if you're not careful. Now, to completely prevent this from happening, I secured a piece of 1/4 inch thick plywood to the left side of the plunge router base with some carpet tape, and this plywood is also the same thickness as the template. Now, this will prevent the router from tipping as I'm routing out my channel, so it makes it nice and secure. After splitting this cutting board stock apart, making sure to keep the bandsaw blade in between the channel that was created with the plunge router, I can now use a pattern bit which has the bearing underneath the cutters, and the bearing is going to track along the routed portion or half of the channel that was cut in half. So the bearing will track along the routed portion, and the cutters will flush the bandsaw portion down to the surface that was made from the plunge router. And then after I insert the 1/4 inch strip that we made with the walnut earlier, I should be able to sandwich the 1/4 inch strip in between and then glue this together. I used two pieces of scrap wood, one on each side that had a notch in the middle. And this notch was used to bridge the piece of walnut because it's a little bit proud of the piece of cherry on each side. Now what this did was when I clamped the piece of scrap wood down to the cutting board stock, it helped to make sure that each half of the cutting board was in the same plane as each other. So I end up with a cutting board that is nice and flat. Now, once this is set for about 5 minutes or so, I just go ahead and undo the clamps and take these off. I do have wax on the bottom to prevent them from sticking, but I don't like to leave them on there. A little paranoid. While the glue was drying, I went ahead and got a nice clean shave for you, because when you're doing this stuff, you have to use your time efficiently. So now with a hand plane, I can flush this walnut down to the surface of the cherry. I'm gonna repeat this process one more time, but I'm gonna attach the template this time so that the curve is facing the opposite direction and the curves will actually crisscross. I think that'll look pretty cool. If you have any questions about this week's build, please ask me in the comments section below. And also, if you'd like to support what I do here at Garage Woodworks, consider becoming a supporter through Patreon. And you'll see a link to my Patreon page in the first comment below and also in the description of the video. I'll see you guys next time. Be sure to check out my Amazon affiliate store, where you'll find a lot of the tools that I use in my shop. You'll also find a brief description of the tool and what I think of it. You'll find a link to my Amazon store in the description of the video.